Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with TB Fork, and this is day 9 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be elk ribeye steak, and today is going to be a shoulders and arms training workout. And the theme for today's video is exercise frequency. So today, I'm going to be explaining how many days per week you should be training based off of various factors. Now let's get started. And while we're resting, let's talk about training frequency for powerlifters. The conjugate method is a terrific method for powerlifting. And I mentioned this earlier, it was developed by Louis Simmons. Louis was one of my teachers, and the conjugate method was absolutely amazing for increasing your strength. If you are somebody who is interested in increasing your bench, your deadlift, your squat, I would highly encourage you to check out the conjugate method. And I made a few videos on how to write your own conjugate method program. It is a 4-day training split. You have 2 max effort days where you are focusing on lifting as heavy as possible for strength gains. These max effort days, you're lifting at 90+% intensity. And then you have your dynamic effort days. These are going to be your low intensity days. And with these ones, you want to emphasize speed and explosiveness. So on your max effort days, you're lifting 90+% intensity. On the dynamic effort, anywhere between 40 to 60. And you want to just lift the bar as fast as you can. It's all about speed and velocity. So with these methods right over here, the way that you could do it is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday split. You could do your max effort squat and deadlift on your Monday, your max effort bench on the Wednesday, your dynamic effort squat and deadlift on the Friday, and then your dynamic effort bench on the Sunday. You could also swap it out. It doesn't really matter if you do the squat and deadlift on the Monday or the Wednesday, but the important thing is Monday and Wednesday are your max effort days, and then Friday and Sunday are your dynamic effort days. There's also going to be a lot of supplemental and accessory work with regard to these workouts. With regard to the supplemental work, you want to pick exercises that are going to directly impact your main lift. So on the bench press, you could do things like a behind the neck press. You could focus on tricep work. On your squat and deadlift day, you could focus on things that are going to enhance quad strength, glute strength, your low back strength. And it's a really, really terrific method. It was developed by Louis Simmons, again, who was the founder of Westside Barbell. That's where it became really, really popular. And the method uses a very specific periodization method to continually improve your performance. But if you are a powerlifter or if you train powerlifters, I would check out the video that I made on the conjugate method. Just go on my channel, search conjugate method, and there will be a few videos that pop up. With regard to recovery for the conjugate method, you want to make sure that you prioritize deload weeks every once in a while. Typically, what you can do is you can pre-plan your deload weeks if you find that that works best for you, or you can kind of play it by ear. Because there are some people like myself, I rarely do deloads. I only do them when I really, really need them. I never pre-plan my deloads. But rest is up. Time for the 6th and final set. And while we're resting, let's talk about training frequency with regard to bodybuilding or people who is just general interest is in hypertrophy training. With regard to hypertrophy training, I'm a really big fan of the 5-day training split. One of my favorites, it was developed by Charles Poliquin, and it was day 1 was going to be your chest and back day. Day 2 is your legs and abs. You have a rest day on day 3. Day 4 is arms and shoulders, and then a rest day on day 5. And day 6 repeats at day 1. Each day you want to just target a specific muscle group. That's just one example of a 5-day training split. The 5-day training split that we are doing for this particular program, this is one that I just came up with. And the reason that I like this 5-day training split is because I find that everything is properly aligned, and that one extra day, doing 4 days of actual hard training and 1 day of active recovery, with this particular training split, the way it is structured, it works out perfectly because you end up training your back on day 1. And the back, it's a very, very large muscle group. So you're going to need a few days to recover before you could train it again. Then on day 2, we end up training chest. So we give our back a break. By day 3, we're doing legs and abs. So when we do legs and abs, really our back, it should be pretty good by then, but it is going to be affected a little bit when we are doing things like Romanian or conventional deadlifts. And then by the time day 4 comes around, then we're doing shoulders and arms. And shoulders and arms, by that point, we've had a little bit of a time to recover from the chest and back day because we had that leg day in between. And then on day 5, we do our active recovery. So I find that this 5-day split that I came up with, it is pretty scientifically sound and it works great. And also with regard to progressive overload, this is going to be critical for hypertrophy. And with this workout right over here, it's very easy to get into progressive overload because if you follow everything that I've been doing, if you've been taking a look at the boards, you could see that with regard to the sets and repetitions, it's changing every single week. And also the volume is increasing every single week. So that's one way that we are allowed to progressively overload the workouts with this particular method that I've come up with. Another thing is with regard to the active recovery days, you want to include some type of mobility work. That's why every single active recovery day, we are doing joint mobilizations and also myofascial or PNF stretching. And you also want to make sure that you're prioritizing rest if your goal is hypertrophy. Again, your muscles end up repairing themselves and growing when you are sleeping. So if you are not sleeping, you're not going to be able to repair yourself. You're not going to be able to grow. And also, a lot of important hormones are produced when we are sleeping, like your melatonin, which is going to regulate your sleep wake cycles. Also, things like your ghrelin and leptin, which is going to regulate your appetite. If those are out of whack, it's going to make it easier to cheat on your diet, which is going to have a negative impact. So overall, you want to make sure that all of these things are put in place. But rest is up. Time for set number 2. And while we're resting, let's talk about the correlation between training frequency and training volume. Generally, if you are going to be increasing the frequency at which you are training, that is going to require a decrease in volume per session. If you are somebody who's more advanced and you are doing your exercise program properly and you're properly structuring it, you can do high frequency and high volume, but generally it's going to be very, very tricky. With regard to higher volume per sessions, that's going to lead to fewer training days. If you are doing something like a German volume training workout, which is the 10 by 10, that is very, very high volume. So something like a German volume training session, you wouldn't really be able to do too many. However, I have done 7 days a week of German volume training in the past. So as long as you are structuring it properly and there's no overlap, you can still keep the volume high and the training frequency high, but you're going to have to get really, really specific with your programming. Also, strength athletes are often going to use lower volumes with higher intensities. And for strength athletes, their training frequency is going to be a little bit lower because the intensity is so high, even though they're having lower volume. So with strength athletes, the training frequency is lower and the training volume is lower due to the high intensity. So that's a paradoxical response to what we were just talking about with regard to the high volume, low frequency. The other thing with regard to training frequency is there should be a balance between volume for optimal recovery. If you are doing insanely high intensity and insanely high volume, the chance that you're going to be able to recover properly is going to be very, very slim. And the chance that you're overtraining is going to be very, very high. And when you're overtraining, that is when both volume and frequency are too high. So if you find that you're having difficult time to recover, you're definitely going to want to decrease one of the two. You're either going to have to decrease the volume a little bit, or you're going to have to decrease the frequency a little bit. If you are going to be reducing the volume, then you could do a little bit more sessions. And if you're going to be reducing the sessions, you could add a little bit more volume on the days that you are actually training. But volume should progressively increase for hypertrophy over time if you want to get the greatest hypertrophy responses possible. Also, you want to make sure that you are maintaining consistent volume across sessions. That's going to be the key to progress. If your volume is all over the place and you have no real structure to your programs, it's going to be very, very difficult to track your progress. So you want to be able to adjust the frequency, and that's going to allow you to match your recovery ability. But our rest is almost up. It is time for set number, I believe, 3. Thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. Be sure to like, share, and leave a comment as it'll help the algorithm. And if you enjoyed the content, show your support by subscribing to the channel by clicking on the icon in the bottom right corner. And if you really want to show your support, then consider becoming a member by clicking on the icon in the bottom left corner. These new high-quality videos aren't cheap to edit, and the $5 membership will really help with the video editing budget. You'll also get access to a ton of exclusive perks like early access to videos and this program design lecture playlist in the top right-hand corner. And if you want to learn how to do a one-armed pull-up, then check out the playlist on the top left corner.